Omagyanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So as last week, we'll take some questions which are presented here by Sri Jaya Krsna Prabhu. The first one, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have Sutta speaking, Shukadev speaking. How is it possible that Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam before these conversations were made? Well, the answer is that he wrote it. What we have as Bhagavatam now is written after Sutta and Shukadev spoke. Vyasadeva appears within the Bhagavatam, and he spoke to Shukadev, and Shukadev spoke, Sutta later spoke, and then after all that was over, Vyasadeva compiled the Bhagavatam as we have it now. Why didn't he ask any apologies for misguiding people? This refers to Vyasadeva. Why not now, if he is still in Badrikashram? He's living there still now. Yeah, we find in the 4th chapter, isn't it, of the first canto of Bhagavatam, that Narad, he rebukes Vyasadeva for misguiding people by giving scriptures that don't directly describe the glories of Bhagavan Hari. So he's actually misguiding people. Narad says that, and it's true, but it's only one perspective. Because for some people, they can only be misguided. So it's a question of the best way to misguide them. Krishna says, Savadhaman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Just give up all varieties of so-called religion and just take shelter in me, to surrender to me. This is the only proper advice for every conditioned soul. However, almost all of them are too sinful to accept that. So therefore, in the Vedic literature, there are many different prescriptions given for people at varying levels of consciousness, so that they won't go into gross or lower standards of activity and consciousness than they are presently at, and so that they will have faith in the Vedic injunctions, so that at some point they'll be ready to, or they'll be more prepared to accept the best of all Vedic injunctions, which is given Mamekam Sharanam Vraja in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's misguiding because people, they want to be cheated. Because people are very foolish. The Vedic literature actually caters to people's foolishness. But it simultaneously presents the highest truth for those who are honest enough to accept it. So it's written here that Vyasadeva, he is the cause of all spiritual misunderstanding. But actually the cause of misunderstanding is the perverted desire of the jivas not to surrender to Krishna, and therefore their propensity to misunderstand. Even if we tell the direct truth, most people don't accept it or they misunderstand it. And they become actually very angry about it. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 16, Lord Krishna speaks, said, eternal there is no change. He's actually referring to the jiva here, not to himself, but anyway, say that. And he's in chapter 7, verse 4, he talks about my separated material energies. So how come the changeless one has separated energies? Then what is the meaning of changeless? Yeah, so Krishna, or the Supreme, is eternal and changeless. This is one of the characteristics of the Supreme. So this is a very important point to understand exactly what this means. Shankaracharya interprets this to mean that no change means there's no activity, which means no personality. which means no thing, nothing. And that therefore the Supreme is totally undifferentiated. Nirvishesh is the Sanskrit word. But the Vaishnava Acharyas have refuted this position. Particularly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught the Shakti Parinamavada, that his energies, the transformation is perceived within his energies, but his own personal nature is unchanging. The Supreme, who is Sarva Shaktiman, or all-powerful, has many energies which are simultaneously different and non-different from him. They are not different from him because they are inseparable from him. But at the same time, the various activities that go on within his energies do not affect him. He is transcendental to his energies. This is simply practical. If we accept that there is a source of all energies, which is only sane to do so, that there is God, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it means he's also in charge of his energies. It doesn't mean he's affected or contaminated by his energies. So Krishna is Krishna is Krishna. He is unchangeable. He doesn't go through the various phases of growth, birth, growth, remaining for some time, production of byproducts, dwindling and death. Krishna doesn't undergo these changes. For the sake of his transcendental pastimes, he appears to be born, he appears to be a young child, and he appears to be a youth, although he doesn't age beyond this, because he's not under the aegis of the time factor. He is not subject to any material change. And whatever appears to be a change that's within Krishna's spiritual nature, which is only enacted for the sake of pastimes. Then question number 4. I'm just going over these briefly because there are a lot of questions. In some places in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna advised Arjuna to think about God instead of him. Why? Well, because he is God. So just to make the point that you should think of me, through Arjuna is instructing the whole world. Sometimes he says you should think of God. If you happen to think of Krishna as just some prince or some human being, then why should you think of him? But because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore he's to be offered all respect. Just like I'm sitting on this seat here now, and someone might make a disturbance, and I might say, well, you should respect the person who's sitting on the seat. Well, that happens to be me, but I'm not saying you should offer respect to me just because I'm me, but because there's a certain etiquette to be followed. So Krishna says that you should offer respect to Bhagavan, because by doing that is the proper thing to do, and by doing so you will also be benefited in the best possible way. And that Bhagavan is Krishna. So this is a question, the next one is a question which next to the question is written DK. Everyone in Tamil Nadu knows what DK means. It means from the atheist. So the first statement is that the Pandavas were not at all pure devotees. DK Uvacha. That's what they say, but why should we accept what you say? The Pandavas are described by Vyasadeva and all great acharyas who all accept them as pure devotees, and why should we believe in you, you rascal? If you accept that the Pandavas exist, then you have to accept, first of all, if you say the Pandavas weren't pure devotees, that means you accept that the Pandavas exist. And then you have to accept Shastra, because the Pandavas are described in Shastra. So then accept everything in Shastra. What kind of devotional service did they do? The whole Mahabharata didn't say any word about their devotional service. Excuse me, Mr. Atheist, but you're not qualified to speak on these subjects. You don't know what you're talking about. It's just like, some dam is built, and you say, well, this dam was built by such and such. He's the engineer. The dam. The dam was built by, and the name is given, the engineer. And someone may come and say, what did he do? He just made a few drawings and came and inspected the site. He wasn't working hard on the site, lifting up all the different things and putting them in place. Someone who's foolish may say like that. He doesn't understand the importance of the engineer. Without the engineer, there's no dam. There's someone with no knowledge, no attempt at understanding anything, simply comes in with a critical attitude and wants to make a judgment. I mean, why should you accept the judgment of such a person? Everything the Pandavas did was devotional service, but you can't understand bhakti because you haven't accepted the training in it. And then the next accusation, Indra is basically a woman hunter, and he didn't know what etiquette is. Well, actually, it's the same answer for all these accusations. On the one hand, you say you don't believe in all these gods. On the other hand, you say Indra is a woman hunter. Well, then that means you do believe in him. Otherwise, how could it be anything? Actually, Indra is a very pious person. You don't get the position of Indra without being very pious. And the mistakes that he's made, they are given in Shastra too, for didactic reasons. Didactic means to give us some good lesson. To show that even if someone is very pious, they can still make mistakes. Therefore, we have to be careful. But you're saying Indra doesn't know any etiquette, but you don't know any etiquette. It's just, a respectable person is to be respected, and it's not the job of the junior to correct him. You say, this God is ready to kill even a good demon for this worthless Indra. There's no such thing as a good demon. It's just like, all the thieves, the police come in and raid them, and they start cursing the police. We were just peacefully sitting here. We weren't doing anything wrong, Of course, we raided so many houses, but when they came, we weren't doing anything, and they came and arrested us. Who are these rascal police? So the demons, even if they are apparently moral, they are far more disturbing elements in society than, they are just by their nature disturbing elements in society. Because they don't accept the supremacy of Vishnu. And therefore they put so many obstacles in the path of spiritual progress. Indra has a service to do on behalf of Vishnu, of an administrative function within the universe, and the demons are always trying to disturb them. And then there's talking about Vali. If there was friendship with Vali, then there was no bridge or war would have been required. Vali could have killed Ravana by himself. Well, for that matter, Ram can kill Ravana by himself. Hanuman can kill him by himself. Again, you're talking superficially without any understanding of the deeper aspects. Why all these things are going on? What is the purpose of the Lord in fulfilling His pastimes? Again, if you want to talk about Ram, then you have to accept the version of Ram according to Valmiki. The next one, Krishna avatar, is also an imaginary story. Well, you're just criticizing the Pandavas, but if you accept the Pandavas, then how is there Krishna? How is there not Krishna? Because Krishna didn't need to come. Kamsa, he would have just died in course of time anyway. Well, it's the same answer. You don't know what you don't. You're making lots of very good-sounding accusations, but it doesn't actually make sense. It says here, Kamsa didn't get any benediction from any demigods, but he himself was a very powerful demon. He was Kalanemi previously, and all the big powerful demons had taken birth on earth, and they were causing a great disturbance. So you may say time is enough to kill him, but Bhumi Devi, she herself was feeling so much disturbed. She didn't just want to wait for all the demons to die. She specifically asked Vishnu, or she requested Brahma to request Vishnu to make a solution to all these demons, and Brahma saw no other way than to call Vishnu. See, these DK people are always pointing out the faults in what they imagine to be faults, and they say there's no God. Why don't they go and start arguing with the Muslims? And why don't they do that, for instance? Why don't they go and say, well, Allah never spoke to Muhammad? And I just wonder why. Okay, next question, or challenge, or childish, whatever you want to call it. Yad yada choti shreshtas tattad eve tarojanaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So then why did Lord Ram worship Lord Shiva? Because yad yada acharati shreshtas tattad eve, to set a good example for others. For persons who are not on the level of accepting Vishnu as supreme, they may worship Lord Shiva. It's not the highest understanding, but it's better than being a complete atheist like you. And Vaishnavas may also worship Lord Shiva. They generally don't do so on a regular basis, but we respect him as the great Vaishnava. And Lord Ram may worship Lord Shiva because Shiva is his great devotee, and Lord Rama, in reciprocation to Lord Shiva, worships him as the great personality who's performing so much service to him. Why did Lord Krishna ask Arjuna to worship Durga before the Kurukshetra war? Well, Krishna himself would daily offer, in his Dwarka Leela, would offer respect to various demigods. So that's described that he was showing the Vedic path. Generally in the Vedic path one offers respects to various demigods, understanding them as part and parcel of Krishna, or not understanding them as part and parcel of Krishna. At the lower level one respects various demigods, understanding that there is some power higher than me. For this reason, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would visit various demigod temples wherever he went, because they're great personalities, and he was in the role of a devotee, so he is just like up to the present day we also do that. If we go past a temple of Amman or Parameshwar, we enter the temple and offer respects, but as we offer respects as Vaishnavas, we don't see them as separate gods. So Arjuna, he was also playing the role of a Vedic Kshatriya. It's actually stated that Uddhava is an even greater devotee than Arjuna. Because, not saying that, now when we say that Uddhava is a greater devotee than Arjuna, we don't think that, well, Arjuna, he's kind of useless. We should never think like that. Arjuna is definitely among the very greatest devotees of Krishna. But comparatively, Uddhava is better because he didn't go to various demigods. But Krishna, again, to teach others through his devotees, he has instructed Arjuna that you can recite this stotram and invoke the blessings of Durga Devi. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna mentioned about other gods, Anya Devata. So therefore he is one among the gods. Well, in one sense that's true. We also say Krishna Dev, Govinda Dev. Dev means one who is effulgent, so in one sense you can say that Krishna is a Deva. In one sense you can also say that Krishna is a Jiva, because Jiva means a living being. That's actually one of the names of Vishnu in Vishnu Sahasranama. Of course, Krishna is not just a Jiva, he is the source of all life. And we don't generally refer to Krishna as a Jiva because you have to make a distinction between the supreme living being and the ordinary living beings. But in Tamil Nadu, the Nayanma, is that the right way to pronounce it? Nayanma, the devotees of Lord Shiva, they used to criticize Vishnu, and Lord Shiva personally appeared with his wife and gave them benedictions. So many thousands of songs and thousands of temples are proof. Well, that's not really proof of anything, because there are thousands of songs and thousands of temples of Vishnu also. There are so many thousands of songs glorifying mundane love, thousands of brothels. Madhupanam, no, brothel means place for. So that doesn't mean that mundane sex is the supreme principle. And the 18 siddhas in Tamil Nadu, they say Lord Muruga is the chief of everyone. Hey, and guess what? Near to Bangalore, there's someone who's in a wheelchair now, and many people think he's supreme too. So it may be, again, that some, there are so many stories of different gods appearing to people. In the Catholic tradition, there's what's called the stigmata. There's probably no word in Tamil for that. It means that they meditate on Jesus, and then they get the marks of nails in their hands and their legs, and because they're thinking of Jesus, and then they get the same thing that he got the nails banged into him, and they get the same thing appears on their body. There are many people who claims that Jesus personally talks with them. There's a successful bank in America, and the bank manager tells me that Jesus told me to start this bank, and Jesus tells me how to run it, personally. He comes and tells me. There's a church in America called the Prosperity Church. I mean, when I say church, I mean like a movement, not just, one building. And people, the whole idea is you should pray to God for lots of money, not to God, to Jesus, and He gives lots of money. And people say, I prayed for a new expensive car, and within 1 month, Jesus gave it to me. So, by the grace of Bhagavan and His external energy, people may get what they want. Yayata mang prapadyante tangs tathaiva bhajamyaham. The Lord reciprocates with us, according to the way we approach Him. So, many people in the world are convinced that it's the really religious thing to do is to kill animals and eat them, and God is pleased with that. So there may be what people, mystical apparitions or different things that happen, but this is not the method to understand what is supreme. Of course, some people may say, well, Shiva is supreme, I saw Shiva, but ultimately what result do people get? That has to be seen. Some may say, well, as far as I'm concerned, my wife is supreme. I don't see anyone better than my wife. But then the ultimate result is she dies, you die, and then you both go off somewhere else in the universe. So you may say, well, I believe Lord Shiva is supreme, and someone else says, no, I believe that, some Baba is supreme, and everyone has different opinions. How are we going to ascertain this? Everyone claims some visions and apparitions and mystical happenings. So, ultimately, we have to see philosophically, but even philosophically, people's ability to understand depends on their position, whether they're in Sattva gun, Tamagun, or Rajagun. When Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was in Mysore, he visited the college there. And he said that he put his name in the guest book, and he wrote a comment that is, yes, very good arrangements, but we're feeling the lack of a department for studying the position of Srimad Bhagavatam in ascertaining comparative religion. So in the modern age, comparative religion means you just compare and you say they're all the same and you come to no conclusion. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, by speaking about Srimad Bhagavatam's position in the field of comparative religion, means that Bhagavatam begins with Dharma Projita Kaitava Atra. All cheating religion is fully rejected herein. So within Srimad Bhagavatam is a scientific delineation of who is supreme and what is the topmost position of every living being in relationship with Bhagavan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clarified this as the perfect preacher of Bhagavatam. He clarified that the Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, these Chaturvarga, or the four Purusharthas, the four sought after goals, these are not the real goals of life. The real goal is prema, or love without any personal consideration. Of course, this is a big question, and these kind of discussions have been going on for thousands of years. But you better get it right, because if you do the right thing, you get the right result. If you don't do the right thing, you don't get the right result. That Shiva spends all his time meditating, whereas Krishna spends all his time dancing, suggests that Shiva is meditating on a higher principle, whereas Krishna himself is the highest principle, because he is simply Anandamaya, as described in the Vedanta Sutra. Anandamaya, the Supreme, is simply full of bliss. Jaya and Vijay fell down from Vaikuntha by Krishna's will. In the same way, we also fell down because of Krishna only. He wants to test his material energy in the same way that scientists want to test the atomic bombs. He wants to test his material energy just like scientists want to test atomic bomb. Well, what can I say? This is like an overly fertile brain. Instead of accepting the principle that Bhagavan himself is basically good, we accept the principle that he's basically bad. We take all the statements in Shastra and simply look for faults in Krishna. So, if you look like that, then you'll see like that. But if we accept that Bhagavan is ultimately, he's the well-wisher of all living beings, as the Acharyas have explained, then we can understand that. I mean, it's just a total speculation, absolute speculation that he wants to test. He just puts us here just like scientists testing some bad thing. It just comes from an unreasonably critical mentality. It's just like people can come here and they see, they're having a Sunday program, and then they feed everyone. And you could say, well, yes, they're doing that, but actually the real reason is they want to, eventually they're going to go to everyone and take lots of money from them so that they can, take money and become rich themselves. So it's unnecessarily ascribing bad motives. Shastra says God is so merciful and He is waiting for us, and He is ready to take us back to Vaikuntha. If that is true, now I'm having so much desire to go there, to go back home, back to Godhead. Yeah, it's easy to say that. But if we actually have so much desire to go back to Godhead, if we're actually qualified to, that means we have no more material desires. So you can say that, but if we have material desires, that means we don't really desire fully to go back to Godhead. There's a story, I don't know where it came from, except that Bhakti Swami told it many years ago. It's probably not a Shastric story, but it demonstrates the point. That one man was praying to Bhagavan Narayan. No, actually, Narad Muni went to Vaikuntha and said, so many people are praying that they want to go to you, why don't you take them to you immediately? So Bhagavan said to Narad, okay, well, you go and choose any one of those devotees and tell them they can come to me immediately, and I'll take them to me immediately. So Narad went to earth and saw one person is worshipping Narayan very nicely. So Narad appeared and said, and the person, Narad, I'm so fortunate to have your darshan. You're a great devotee. So Narad said, I can see you're worshipping Narayana with such bhakti. Well, by his grace, I can take you to him immediately. So come on, let's go. So the man said, wonderful, thank you very much. But I still have 2 daughters unmarried. Come back after a few years, I'll get them married, and then I'll go to Vaikuntha. So Narad came back after a few years and said, did you get your daughters married yet? The man said, yes. Okay, come with me. Said, well, no, they're both working both my daughters are working in a hardware company, a software company, so I have to look after the grandchildren. That was a little change I made. When Bhakti Swami told this story, women didn't work, there weren't any software companies actually. Not in India anyway. When I heard him tell this was, about 30 years ago or something, I heard this story. Anyway, it went on like this, and eventually the man died, and then he took birth in another body, and he always had some excuse. It's just like if we tell people, you chant Hare Krishna, be serious about bhakti, but it's such a job to get people to chant even 1 round, and then 2 rounds, and then stop watching the TV, and stop smoking and drinking. Gradually, we get people to follow the practices which will help them to become Krishna conscious. People are very reluctant. So if you actually have desire to go back to Godhead, then follow the process given by Bhagavan, and if you actually follow it seriously, then within a very short time, then you should be able to go. There are many tests on the path of bhakti also to see if we're actually sincere and serious, and we actually do want to serve Krishna in all circumstances. Not that just we say, yes, yes, I love Krishna. That's not enough. We have to show our love. Why doesn't Krishna give me any bliss immediately? Yeah, because you're demanding from Krishna, because you want something. Therefore, you don't get the best thing we can get, which is the bliss of unmotivated devotional service. So the Bhagavatam talks about the atom which is indivisible, but science has shown that atoms are divisible. So the Bhagavatam is wrong and science is right. Well, actually the term atom is derived from Greek, which means the same thing as paramanu, which is the Sanskrit word, which means the most small. So the reason that what they call the atom is divisible is because the atom was conceived of by scientists who didn't actually know what an atom is. It's not what is called the atom is not the ultimately small particle. They thought it was, and they were wrong. So etymologically speaking, the term atom in English is an incorrect term. Electrons, proton, neutron are the three particles. Well, there are so many more that they talk about. And then ultimately they say that there's not. Anyway, it goes on and on. Science, whatever you learn in science today is already out of date. Whatever is being taught as science in the schools today is already the scientists know that is not correct. But it takes time for them to, get their latest speculation in order so that they can present it to the poor school children. Similarly, they're trying to remove our karma by DNA stem cell technology and no more be handicapped by birth. Or birth itself is a handicap. Being born in this material world means that we're born due to some karmic reaction. So by the grace of our scientists, we might turn into some kind of Frankenstein or something. But that doesn't mean we become freed from... It's just like, you see, even within the Indian culture, the women, they look after their children within the womb by various means. They don't take certain kinds of foods, and they do take certain kinds of foods. It doesn't mean the child in the womb is freed from karmic reactions. It just means that the parents are doing certain things to try and help them. This is yeah. Did you finish? I was saying that parents, they are helping the children in various ways by taking certain foods, avoiding certain foods. So you finished that whole thing? So this is a misunderstanding of the of how karma works. That it doesn't mean that everything's completely fixed. If that was so, then there wouldn't be any question of creating karmic reactions. So, but actually this DNA, stem cell technology, all this, is actually demoniac. Genetic engineering. When you say DNA, I presume you're talking about genetic engineering. Or rather the concept promoted along with it, that we are controlling nature and we don't need any God. This is demoniac. The real question is not how you're born, but how you die. We have to die thinking of Krishna, then we don't get born anymore. So it's really, this whole scientific endeavor is really in the wrong way, because it's only attempting to improve the material situation. That also they don't know how to do very well. So this whole mood of faithlessness, it's inauspicious for the living being. To simply want to reject Krishna and Krishna consciousness is most inauspicious for the living being. This attitude of defiance toward Krishna. We should understand the basic point that we are not the controllers, we are controlled. So we should, instead of trying to defy the controller, we should try to act in a way that is pleasing to him or ordained by him, because we are controlled by him. From our frog in the well position, we can find so many reasons not to accept Krishna as supreme, or even to blame Krishna. But will that be beneficial to us? That we have to consider. You can go on doubting all your life,